So now that we've established that the government enjoys manipulating our media, let's talk a little bit about how it might try and cover some technology that they don't want to get into the public arena. Possibly this is a reason why flying saucers aren't talked about in terms of man-made technology. And you feel that there's a resounding silence in the community as far as reviewing your book or reviewing your book fairly in respect to this. Could you give us more details about that kind of reaction again?
Well, first of all, I want to say one thing about those who might be skeptical as to whether or not the government has manipulated them or not. I'll give you an example. You can ask yourself this question of whether or not your mind, your own mind, could be a barometer of government mind control, or rather thought control. If I say the word flying saucer or UFO, do you automatically think of somebody who's maybe nuts, or an attention seeker, or somebody who's, got psychiatric problems, or, New Age, whatever? Just the mention of those words, the fact that it triggers that response in your mind, you automatically think that anyone who says that is off the wall and flaky, shows how much your mind has been influenced. Because
Sure.
Flying saucers are real, man-made machines, and there's no proof that they're not man-made, but there's plenty of proof that they exist, and it goes back quite a few years. And this kind of technology that you have the article there on, now that's the kind of article that you find in a magazine about something where they want to make you think, well, we're working on the problem of this advanced flight system like these. That sort of implies that they're recognizing that UFOs exist.
So they're doing a kind of a backpedaling somewhat to try and shore up things in the scientific community that,
we're working on the problem,
right.
and maybe we'll get there someday.
Yeah, if you don't like the flaky stuff that we've been publishing, maybe you'll like something that we put in Aviation Week of Space Technology. The article is called Air Spike Could Ease Hypersonic Flight Problems. And in this article, it's very interesting because if you do take a look at Mr. Lyne's book and then you read this article, it's funny how it's almost like everybody's saying the same thing. This article was published May 15th, 1995, which was released concurrently with the second edition of Mr. Lyne's book. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. The first thing that they talk about is the flight characteristics. Estimates indicate that an air spike-equipped vehicle traveling at Mach 25 orbital velocity with respect to the exterior of the oblique shock wave would actually be subjected to Mach 3 conditions within the pocket formed behind the wave. How is that possible if gravity is not affected?
Well, that would be, 17,500 miles an hour, of course. And they're basically, you see, this kind of article, they're not going to use this technology. They just put this article out to make you think they're working on the problem. They're trying to make you think that there's some standard way to make using ordinary shock wave mechanics and electrodynamics and gas dynamics and other scientific disciplines, that they can make a ship go as fast as flying saucers have been reported to go.
Well, it's interesting that they don't even explain why you feel Mach 3 conditions behind the shock wave when you're traveling Mach 25. I mean, that's pretty amazing in itself. The article should be on just that.
Well, what they're saying is that this air spike gadget, which is out in front of this little ship, which is shaped kind of like a little pill, the little spike sticks out, and then there's a little sting on the end. When the sting's not in operation, they say you've got a conical shock wave, and when the sting is in operation, operating at something like 35 megawatts power, and it's a plasma arc torch on the end of the sting, that it creates a parabolic wave which reduces the pressure behind it and reduces the heat transfer problems that are associated with that kind of high velocity. But it's just a theory. It's been, they tested it in a wind tunnel, but they're not going to use it.
The second page of this, which shows the diagram, discusses for speeds above Mach 1, the vehicle would rely on a magneto-hydrodynamic fan engine. The lens-shaped craft would have an interior rectifying antenna to absorb pulsed-focused microwave power on the outside of the vehicle to ionize air forced to the rim of the craft by the air spike. The rectennas, which they like to call it, also would pulse electric power through the ionized air, and in conjunction with two superconducting magnets ringing the craft, accelerate the air aft past the vehicle. According to Mirabeau, which is the scientist involved in this wonderful device, this drive system also tends to eliminate sonic booms. Gee, just like what, I wonder? By eliminating pressure discontinuities, so the vehicle is silent but very bright in hypersonic operations. So we have a lens-shaped, glowing object that is silent in flight that he's speculating that someday we might have.
Yes, and what's interesting is the technology's wrong for that kind of propulsion, and they're making it look like that this is just on the horizon. Only 40-something years after the one I saw that didn't make a sonic boom, did not have an air spike gadget on it, and went between 9,000, possibly 25,000 miles per hour in 3 seconds. Now, it did 290-degree turns at above 200 miles per hour, absolutely square turns, and went to the point of infinity, which was the point at which I could no longer see the craft. So the speed of that craft would be determined by how far away I could see it. And I had noticed that I could see my geodesic dome in Hyde Park, which was about 30 miles from my home at the time. I could see my geodesic dome, which was 32 feet in diameter, so I have since revised my statements about the saucer that I believe it was doing more like 25,000 miles per hour.
So it was orbital velocity already?
Yes.
In 1952?
Yes, 1953.
1953.
In late summer of 1953, and there were 6 other people that I know of who were witnessing it, who were with me at the time. And
That's interesting. It's interesting that the same scientist, this character named Mirabeau, we now have up on the screen in Popular Science an article by the same scientist, Mirabeau, who was talking about spinning this wonderful little saucer-shaped object you see here with lasers, kind of like that guy on the Ed Sullivan Show used to spin plates on a stick. This guy does it on lasers now. Apparently this guy's job is to keep creating saucer-shaped gadgets to keep us amused and thinking that things are still being worked on.
yeah, that uses known technology rather than concealed technology.
So we have a totally different timeline than our friend Mirabeau here. And
Yes.
just to finish up on some wonderful disinformation, we have another saucer developed by Lockheed. This one, of course, has right smack in the middle of it, a fan jet engine so that this thing can fly somehow. And basically just tear itself apart in mid-flight. But,
That device
Space ROS.
would burn the ship up from the friction of the gases entering the vents if it was enough to propel the ship. The only magazine even anywhere near them, Nexus magazine, which is more
which is out of the country. It's
Yeah.
Australian.
Yeah.
So it's not...
And they've done a short review, about, a couple of column inches on the book.
Was it favorable?
It was, usually they get everything wrong. They misquote me, and there have been a few writers who have written books. And they will say things that I didn't, say that I said things that I didn't say, get me confused with other people,
So they
and
mix it
totally
up.
distort what I said.
But do you feel that is deliberate?
Sure, certainly it is.
So do you feel that Nexus then is not a good example of something that's independent either?
I don't think so. I think the fact that they, they had a change of ownership after they did the review, and they had more interesting, from my standpoint, they had more interesting material in there. Now they have more off-the-wall type of articles and so forth, what I consider off-the-wall. I'm a
I've noticed
skeptic.
that they've been running these long string of bloodline of Jesus and
Oh,
things of that
yeah.
nature, and
Which-
Windwalker series that deals with.
Chupacabra.
In
you know.
fact, this brings to mind an article that they stuck in about some eyewitness to the fireballs, or the ones that followed the B-17s in World
Yes.
War II, the Foo Fighters.